On this week's episode, we discuss, is Austin Reaves an all-star, and the Lakers defense versus the Lakers athleticism. Here we go. Welcome to the Matter of Stats podcast, everybody. Anthony with you, as always. Thank you for watching. Please remember to check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. We appreciate it. Check out our YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to grow the channel, and every little bit helps. So let's jump right in. Kind of a strange week for the Lakers. Not a whole lot going on. They only played one game, obviously losing at home to the San Antonio Spurs. Disappointing loss. We talked about it in our post-game recap earlier in the week. Not a great game. Lakers gave up 132 points, lots of free throws, really struggled defensively, and they lost at home to a Spurs game without Wemby in an elimination game with an opportunity to go to Vegas to play in the NBA Cup semifinals. So all that out the window. It wasn't a great week. They now, instead of going to Vegas, they traveled to Phoenix to face the Suns, another team that they lost to by double figures. And, we talked about the trend of the losses and kind of what that looks like on paper for the Lakers, where their inefficiencies are. And we'll get to that here in just a little bit. But first, wanted to start with a positive. Right? Start with something good. We're very close to the all-star selections. The voting is about to start here very soon, later this month. And it brings up an interesting topic. We know Luka's having a great year. LeBron is still LeBron. He's always likely to be voted into the all-star game no matter what his numbers are, as long as, of course, he qualifies to play enough games. But Austin Reaves having a great season, having an all-star caliber season, having obviously his best season of his career. And it kind of begs the question, is he an all-star? Or more importantly, can he make the all-star team? We kind of mentioned this in a post last week. If, given his numbers, as great as they are, can he make the all-star team? Assuming Luka and SGA are locks, that kind of limits the guard spots on the roster to guys like Steph, if he makes the team, Anthony Edwards, you're talking about James Harden, other guys that are having great years. So now they get you to about 5 guards potentially, and maybe one more guard spot is available. And is that going to be Reaves? Is it going to be Murray from Denver? Who else kind of fits into that mix? Is Devin Booker? Has he played well enough? He's a perennial all-star caliber player. Is Reaves on the cusp? Can he beat out one of those guys? The numbers surely support it, but wanted to shed a little light. Reaves getting off to a tremendous start, has dipped a little bit, and it just makes me wonder, is that something, as we play into the voting here, that he's going to get some sense of a popularity vote because he's a Laker, but given the spots available and the votes that Luka and LeBron are probably going to get, where does he kind of fall into the guard rankings as far as votes? And if he doesn't get voted in, which is more than likely, is he going to get picked as a reserve by the coaches? And the numbers certainly support it to start, but he has dipped a little bit as of late. Specifically on the season, he's having a career year. He's averaging almost 28 points a game, almost 6 rebounds a game, and almost 7 assists, and he's shooting about 37% from 3. So great numbers, tremendous numbers, obviously. All-star level numbers, certainly. But let's break it down a little bit by month, and you'll see kind of what I'm talking about, and if this is something that may or may not hurt his case for an all-star selection. In October, he was unbelievable. 32 points a game, and his net rating was a plus 8.4. In November, still really, really good. Almost 27 points a game, and his net rating was a plus 8. December, okay, here's where it dips a little bit. 24.4 points per game, but his net rating is a minus 4.9. Now, some of that has to do with the defensive side of the ball. Some of that has to do with some of the recent Laker losses. Some of that has to do with rotations and minutes. Now that you've got everybody healthy, right? Luka missed some games early on. Obviously, we know LeBron missed plenty of games early on. So some of that obviously factors into the production and the way we look at the numbers. But on paper, he has steadily gone down each month of the season, not just points, but efficiency. His net rating has decreased each month. And obviously, so far in the month of December, it's not looking good. His net rating pretty poor, especially when you compare it, obviously, to the previous 2 months. So it just kind of makes you wonder, how is that going to play into the coach's decision to select him as an all-star reserve? Assuming he's not one of the starting guards, let's just assume for the sake of argument that Luka and SGA are the 2 starting guards. Let's assume that Harden and Anthony Edwards are probably locks. Steph, maybe he gets a popularity pick, if you will, from the coaches. And now you're looking at, if you're going to have one more guard on the roster, right, who's it going to be? And are the coaches going to select Austin Reaves over maybe some guys that have been there before or are bigger, name players, right? Like Murray, like Devin Booker. So it's going to be interesting to see as the voting starts here and we get closer to the actual All-Star game itself, if Reeves' numbers kind of continue to go down, or even if they fluctuate a bit. Is he going to do enough as a reserve, which is probably the likely route? He'll have to probably get picked by the coaches to be a reserve and won't be voted in by the fans. Has he done enough? Will he continue to do enough to earn his first ever All-Star appearance? Now, as we record this show, it did break earlier that he is going to be out for at least a week with an injury. Now, how does that affect things? Obviously, in the short term, it's not good for the Lakers, of course, but it's not good for Reaves statistically, because now he's going to miss a handful of more games. And what does the injury do to his numbers? Does it set him back? Does he kind of have to ramp things up a little bit? So there's a lot of factors, but the injuries, obviously bad news for the Lakers as a whole from winning basketball games, because we've seen what this Laker team is. They have to win offensively. They have trouble defensively. Every loss has been by double figures. Every loss has been pretty strategically the same. We talked about this last week on the show. Athleticism, defense, teams that pressure the ball definitely give the Lakers trouble, because they're a young team, but they're not an athletic team. They're a great offensive team, but they're not a great three-point shooting team. So those areas are pretty critical, and it's been the formula in just about every Laker loss so far. And without Austin Reaves, from a playmaking standpoint and obviously from a scoring standpoint, it's a huge loss for the Lakers. So we'll see how that goes. But it's an interesting debate. If Austin Reaves can and will make an all-star team, the numbers, I think, at least to this point in the season, definitely support it. It's just going to be a matter of how many spots are available, and is he going to beat out some players that have a little more maybe stature and name and a little more experience as far as putting up these high-level numbers and playing in previous all-star games, to see if he can earn his spot as a Western Conference All-Star and represent the Lakers. Would be cool if the Lakers could have 3 representatives. That hasn't happened, obviously, in quite some time. So we'll see. It'd be interesting to see. Moving right along. We touched on this last week, a little more in depth about the Lakers' losses and the strategic elements that continue to cause the Lakers problems based on the teams they face. They're losing very similar ways to similar teams that defend, that are athletic, that can shoot the three, and they really put a lot of pressure on the Lakers to be able to try to keep more athletic teams in front of them, and the athletic teams that are putting pressure on the Lakers, ball handling, and maybe making it more difficult for them to score at times. And it's caused the Lakers to struggle. They give up a lot of points as it is. In the losses, they give up more points than the wins. You know, in the game against San Antonio, they scored 119, they gave up 132. So 119 points should win you games most of the time, but not when you're giving up 132 points. So that being said, kind of wanted to really take a little slight spin on it and talk more specifically about the difference between the Lakers' defense or lack thereof and the Lakers' athleticism or lack thereof. A lot of times when you hear, athletics or athletes or being athletic, you think, well, they're probably young. And the Lakers are a relatively young team. They only have a couple players really over the age of 30, and that's obviously LeBron and Marcus Smart. So the Lakers are a young team, but they're not an athletic team. We talked about this last week. Luka, Reaves, as great as they are handling the ball and playmaking, they're not quick, they're not athletic. They're not necessarily going to take somebody off the dribble with their speed and quickness. They're going to do it with their ability and their elusiveness and their high basketball IQ. That being said, the Lakers don't have a lot of athletes, nor do they have a lot of high-level individual defenders. So this team is going to have to play, sort of a cohesive unit defense where they're all on the same page. All five guys have to defend. You heard that a lot after the San Antonio loss, about all five guys kind of being on the same page defensively, because they don't have one-on-one high-level defenders, but they don't have one-on-one high-level athletes. And if you look around the league, the teams that are really striving, or the teams that are causing the Lakers the most difficulty, aren't necessarily playing elite defense on the Lakers. They're just making the Lakers work offensively by putting ball pressure, and the Lakers are losing to these athletic teams that can also push the ball on the other end. You saw the Spurs really attack the Lakers, get to the paint, get to the foul line a lot, because the Lakers weren't able to keep the athletic Spurs in front of them. And you've seen that in other games with athletic ball pressure against, like in Phoenix, with Portland. These teams that have been able to put a lot of pressure on the ball, forcing the Lakers into turnovers, and which leads to more offensive possessions, which hurts the Lakers' defense, because we know the Lakers are not going to get a lot of stops defensively. And when the offense is struggling or being pressed into doing things out of character, they turn the ball over, and they don't have the athletes to match these athletic teams on the other side of the ball. So it's really a domino effect, and it affects both sides. But I wanted to talk about, I don't necessarily think the Lakers have to be an elite defensive team. They have to find a way to get more athletic. I don't think in today's NBA you have to necessarily have a bunch of high-level individual defenders, but you do have to have athletes that can stay in front of the opposition, at least enough to slow them down so that you can take away their first move. Make it a little more difficult for them to score, right? Make them work for their offense, right? You hear that term a lot, right? You got to make guys work. You're not going to stop a star, but you got to make them work, right? You got to make it harder for him to score. And simply put, you just have to be athletic enough to force them to work just enough to slow them down so you could take advantage of your strengths. The Lakers' strengths are offense, are attacking the paint, things like that. And so far, the Lakers haven't been able to do that. Just to give you a little, background here. So currently this season, the league is averaging about 115 points a game, right? So league-wide average 150 points per game. Last season it was 116. The season before that it was 114. So you kind of see where the trend is over the last 3 years on what teams are scoring on a nightly basis. As a comparison, let's take the Thunder, right? They're generally considered the gold standard right now. Last year, the Thunder gave up 108 points per game. This year, they're giving up 107 points per game. Pretty consistent. The reason why I bring that up is as great as the Thunder are this year and last year when they won the championship, defensively, their metrics are pretty comparable. Their record's a little better this year, obviously, than it was last year at this point, although last year's record was also great. But they're playing at a similar level, maybe a little bit better because they're a little, more experienced and improved now. But defensively, they're giving up about the same amount of points per game as they did last year when they won the championship. The Pacers last year, their opponent in the NBA Finals, right? They took OKC to a Game 7. Okay, they were giving up over 115 points a game last year, and they were able to not only take the Thunder to a Game 7, but some people believe that if Halliburton hadn't gotten hurt, they might have won Game 7. So all this chatter about how great OKC is defensively, they were taken to Game 7 twice last year in their championship run, and quite possibly could have lost the championship to a Pacers team that was a terrible defensive team. But what did they have? They were highly athletic. They were able to make the Thunder work. And I think that's what you're seeing this year is the Lakers. They're not good defensively, we know that. But they don't have to be great defensively, but they have to be better athletically to make teams work. To make a team like the Thunder or any other Western Conference foe work. The Thunder are athletic. The Rockets are athletic. So, Denver's got some athleticism. The Lakers need to find a way, either internally or externally, right? Rob, here we go. Come on, baby. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. We need something. Go get us something. Come on. Every week, I'm going to give it to you. The Lakers have to find a way to get athletic. It's probably not in this locker room right now, but there's got to be some short-term answers. I know people, love Rui's a very likable player. Gabe Vincent's supposed to be out there for his defense, but he's small. The Lakers need to find a way to move some of these pieces to get some more athletic players, whether they're high-level defenders or not. If they're more athletic, you make a team work, and I think that's going to be the Lakers' short-term recipe for success, at least this year, to see if they can find a way to get back into the mix and get past the first round in the Western Conference. And just give them a chance. Just give them an opportunity because you never know, right? OKC was the champion, but they were this close to not being the champion. As great as they were, you never know what can happen in a 7-game series. And the Lakers are good enough offensively if they can just be decent enough defensively, add the athleticism, make a few more outside shots, they're going to have a chance. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what Rob does. See how the rest of the season goes. And, maybe we'll get a little Christmas magic. Maybe Santa will bring us something. Who knows? But we'll see. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of the Matter Stats podcast. Again, thank you guys for listening. Check out our YouTube channel. Subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Matter of Stats podcast.